Saakashvili being a junkie. Georgi Heindrava also says that Georgia's interior minister controls drug trafficking throughout the country. But it's not the first time the government's been accused of involvement in the narcotics trade. Our Georgia correspondent Irina Golushka says the president's behaviour has been raising questions.
Heindrava said that he's willing to do a blood test along with President Saakashvili to prove that Saakashvili is indeed a drug user. But really, these kinds of rumors are always flying around the Georgian capital. I mean, Georgia is right in the middle between, it's right there on the drug route between Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey. So these kind of rumors appear all the time. But of course, at the same time, it doesn't sound like such an out there story, because Georgian president has given rise to many of such rumors by his very often bizarre behavior. For example, there was the time in 2008 in Gori when all of a sudden he was meeting with journalists and out of nowhere he started running and nobody could understand what's happening. And people who were there actually told me that even his bodyguards were amazed at his behavior and could not understand why in the world was he running. There he is talking to Bernard Kouchner, laughing, having a great time, and then in just a few seconds you're going to see his facial expression change. He's going to look up, probably thinking that he saw something flying in the air, like a Russian jet fighter or something, and then he's going to start running for his life. And people who were there, the Georgian journalists, told me that his bodyguards started cussing and swearing under their breath and then started covering him with their own bodies. And there was, of course, the famous moment when Saakashvili was eating his thigh during the BBC broadcast. Everybody saw that. I think there is not a single person in the world who has a TV set that has not seen that happening. So obviously, people will start wondering why in the world is the leader of a country doing that when he is not using drugs. I mean, something has to underlie this sort of behavior. There are, of course, members of the opposition. They actually might go for this and demand a drug test. I don't know if they will. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Even Russian President Medvedev last year said that he refuses to do any business with Saakashvili because he was told by several Western correspondents that Saakashvili has given interviews before while being high on drugs. So again, this is a hearsay, but these kind of rumors about the Georgian president do fly around quite often.
Our Georgia correspondent Irina Golushka there a little earlier on. Celebrations are being held near Moscow to mark the...
On August 7th, at about 5 or 3 p.m., Saakashvili made a television address, and he said to the Ossetian people that he would stop fighting, and they should do the same. Saakashvili said that back then, he agreed to negotiate, etc. In a word, this relaxed the people. I went to sleep calmly. It was about midnight that the shooting started, and it was terrible. To prove that what happened with South Ossetia and its 120,000 residents on the 8th of August was a war crime. In the civilized world, it is a rule to try rulers responsible for massacres of civilians and genocide by court-martial. The Georgian army received the order to attack the sleeping Timbal from President Mikhail Saakashvili. But who does Saakashvili himself receive orders from? Who finances the Georgian army? Who supplies Georgia with state-of-the-art military equipment? Why were there Afro-American mercenaries in NATO uniform found among the killed aggressors? Who in South Ossetia was the fifth column, a traitor that opened the door to the enemy? And why did the war in Ossetia dramatically reverse the course of the presidential election campaign in the United States, making the radical Russophobe McCain lagging behind Barack Obama before the war lead?
Russia is using violence against Georgia.
The South Ossetia attack operation was titled Clean Field. This was certainly the best option for Georgia. They want the land without us. They simply want this territory. He wanted to kill us all, everyone. He said that he did not want the people here, only the land itself. He wanted this land for the Georgian people to live on, while we would have been buried in it. Ex facto, this aggression seems to be an attempt by Georgia to take control over the territory of South Ossetia by force. They planned a one-day blitzkrieg to enter the Rocky Tunnel and to present the world community with an accomplished fact. If there is no man, there is no problem. If there's no population of South Ossetia, no one to upset the plans of capturing the fertile land. They knocked on the basement doors. They said, "Come out, you Ossetians. Come out. The Russians will not help you." However, that small victorious war went wrong. It was already in the evening of August the 8th that the Russian army entered South Ossetia through the Rocky Tunnel, and by August 10th had already forced the Georgian aggressors back to Gori. It was only then that the world community noticed that an irreparable event took place in the Caucasus.
The United States of America stands with the democratically elected government of Georgia. Today, we are all Georgians.
Right now, we're focused very heavily on getting Russian forces out of Georgia.
However, to the global public opinion, it was the Russian intervention into the conflict between Georgia and South Ossetia, rather than the genocide of Ossetians and killing of Russian peacekeepers, that was considered irreparable. The victims of the Georgian aggression were generally civilians, farmers, whose only weapons were shovels and rakes. I ran out and saw an old man, 94 years old, being shot point blank. What was he guilty of? Crimes are usually committed at night, and all witnesses are eliminated. This time was no exception. However, Georgian soldiers were so proud of their man-hating mission that they recorded the attack on the peaceful city and killing of its residents with their own cell phone cameras. Therefore, we now possess ample evidence of war crimes committed by the Georgian army. This video shows them already advancing inside. We can see indiscriminate shooting. Please note there's a car, a Vaz 2107 in that place. And he fires 3 times from a grenade launcher directly into this car. Please note that the machine starts to burn. There was a family of 3 people in it. The soot you can see is generated by the very automatic mounted grenade launcher. It is in this car that the Drusoyev family tried to escape from the enemy occupied the city. The woman managed to jump out of the car and watch the Georgian soldiers burn her husband, Mair, and their 2 children, 14-year-old daughter, Dina, and 15-year-old son, Aslanbek. The grandfather of these children, Zaur Drusoyev, no longer sees any point in living. My children were all very beautiful. I was happy and proud of my children. They were so beautiful, so young and capable. On the 8th of August, when the shooting quieted down a little bit, my son said, "Dad, I may manage to sneak through and go to the North Caucasus." He put the children into the car, but it was even before he managed to leave the city that a tank appeared going directly towards them. They fired point blank and killed all my children. They had it their own way. They burned everything. Such atrocities. A car is not a combat vehicle. The specific features of South Ossetian territory imply that there are Ossetian villages bordering with Georgian villages. In peacetime, these 2 peoples lived together on a small plot of land in a perfectly neighborly way. That the sudden disappearance of Georgian women and children a few days before the attack on Sinwal did not go unnoticed. The Georgians started evacuating women and children from their villages on the 5th of August. The number of buses passing the peacekeeping checkpoint, Provoke or Spider, only on August the 5th, numbered 96. This meant that it was not just a partial outflow, but a total evacuation of the population. To reiterate, the Georgian side had evacuated their women and children 3 days before the war began. The role intended for its male population will be described later. This means that Georgia started preparing for the attack on Ossetia beforehand, and even took commendable care with civilians. Civilian Ossetians, however, were supposed to suffer quite a different fate. 4 hours before